tonight. Regina City Council debates the city's 2025 budget. Climate change drives up the price of cocoa, putting a strain on local chocolate shops. And a Regina organization expands its laundry service, helping the city's most vulnerable.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, March 18th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thanks for joining us. Regina's 2025 budget is being debated this week, and that means some tough choices for city councillors as they stare down the largest mill rate increase in years. And as Chris Edwards reports, the requests for cuts have already started happening.
We're asking everybody to leave a little blood on the floor. So far, everyone that's come to us has done that.
A blunt ask from Ward 3 councillor George Sickleys and a summary of how Regina's budget debate is going. It comes as councillors face a proposed mill rate increase of 8.5%, the largest increase in over a decade. City administration says it's needed to fund increasingly expensive city operations, and council has been finding ways to chip away at that increase by asking the Regina Police Service and Real District to cut down their requests for money.
There's no way we can lower that anymore. We lowered it as much as we could, and we're not asking for any money for increase in our establishment. We've managed that ourselves.
Regina Police have lowered their increase request from an additional $9 million to just over $6 million. And on Monday, Real District proposed a $1.2 million reduction in its original request. But that wasn't enough for one councillor.
My ask is at an additional $300,000 would bring us to the $1.5 million, and that's almost a whole half of a mill rate.
Radon's request passed Tuesday. But the Regina Public Library, which has its own mill rate, requested a funding increase of just over 10% to the mill rate. Its board chair says that will help fund operations and a new future downtown library.
For many years, we've kept our mill rate low to lighten the load for taxpayers. Unfortunately, that's not something that we can continue.
If the library gets its wish, that would mean an additional $21 in taxes for the average homeowner. The budget debate continues Wednesday with a final vote later in the week. Chris Edwards, CBC News, Regina.
Meanwhile, we are just now hours away from knowing what will be in the provincial budget. Wednesday's budget will also coincide with the beginning of the spring legislative sitting. At the legislature Tuesday, Finance Minister Jim Ryder gave some hints as to what will be included. This year's budget is titled Delivering for You. Ryder says a couple of things will take center stage.
So what you're going to see tomorrow in the budget speech, sort of first thing out of the gate, is a discussion on tariffs. You're also going to see, as part of the budget, some analysis work that was done by the Ministry of Finance on that as well. It's going to deliver in the priority areas. This won't surprise you when you see it tomorrow. It's priority areas that we heard from people during the election campaign where they expect government to focus.
NDP leader Carla Beck is calling for the budget to adequately address those tariffs. Beck has repeatedly called for the legislature to reconvene early to discuss U.S. President Donald Trump's economic threats. She's also hoping to see action on the 100% tariff placed on canola by China. Those were put in place after Canada announced a tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles last year.
We need to see movement to remove the tariff on EVs. We need to have that 100% tariff removed, the Chinese tariff removed. Canola is such an important crop when it comes to this province. You know, this is a must-do for this government and for the federal government.
Beck made the announcement at the opening of Canada's Farm Show in Regina. Premier Scott Moe was there too. He also has his mind on canola tariffs, and he's looking to the federal government to take action.
That's why I've asked the new Prime Minister to reach out to President Xi in China before he calls an election to offer a plan on how we're going to chart a path forward, and that tariff can be removed. Because by the time even an election writ period is over federally, we will be facing substantial job loss, not only in Saskatchewan but across Western Canada. So really, a Western Canadian expense at the benefit of a non-existent EV auto industry in Eastern Canada.
Mo says he has not spoken directly to Carney about the tariff. He says there has been some talk of a First Minister's meeting later this week with the new Prime Minister. It's believed that will happen on Friday. The government of Saskatchewan is boasting a new deal on steel. The province has announced Sask Power will purchase 10,000 tons. The government says that's equal to about 3 years' worth of steel to be used for infrastructure projects. This announcement comes amid the 25% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum imposed by the U.S. last week. But aside from buying steel made in Saskatchewan, the Minister of Crown Investments Corporation has bigger goals.
We're doing what we can here in this province through our Crown utilities, and thank goodness for our Crown utilities that we're in a position to be able to move forward with this particular procurement. But the long term, we need to make sure that we can get pipelines built in Canada again.
Don Hunter, the vice president of Evraz North America, was also at the announcement. The company, which is part owned by Russian oligarchs, announced its plans to sell off its North American assets back in 2022. But Hunter told reporters he had no comment on that matter because Evraz is, quote, in the middle of it. Canada's annual inflation rate jumped to 2.6% in February after the federal tax holiday came to an end mid-month. It's a sizable jump from the 1.9% increase in January. That's when consumers had a full month of a temporary tax break on some goods and services. February's figures far surpassed the 2.2% increase predicted by economists who were polled by Reuters. A report from RBC says slower price growth for gasoline kept headline inflation from creeping up even higher last month. The pronounced rise comes ahead of another projected spike brought on by the Canada-U.S. trade war. And we're getting more indications that ongoing trade war and annexation rhetoric from the White House appears to be impacting the travel plans of Canadians. Cross-border trips from Canada to the U.S. have plummeted to levels not seen since the pandemic. Data from U.S. border officials shows February saw nearly 500,000 fewer travelers cross the land border from Canada into the U.S. compared to the same month last year. The total number of trips by passenger vehicle dropped to just over 2.2 million crossings. That is the lowest it's been since April of 2022, when some of the COVID-related travel restrictions were still in place. The data shows a sudden change in travel patterns when U.S. President Trump launched his trade war and ramped up his musings about annexing Canada. Well, your favorite chocolate bar might just cost you a little bit more in the future. And no, it's not just because of tariffs. Climate change is wreaking havoc on the chocolate industry. And as I recently found out, it's having impacts here at home. Faye Moffat is hard at work making her next batch of specialty chocolates, but the Saskatoon chocolatier is finding it much more expensive to purchase the cocoa she needs for her sweet snacks.
In 2023, it was about $3,300 a ton, and now it's up to about $10,000 to $12,000 a ton. So it's 3 to 4 times increased over the last year and a half.
It all stems from poor conditions for growing cocoa. Major cocoa-producing countries in West Africa have faced extreme temperatures, floods, and drought in recent growing seasons, ruining cocoa harvests. And conditions are only getting worse.
All of these different impacts are traced, they're more extreme and they're more frequent due to climate change, even though you can't attribute necessarily a single event due to climate change. But these have been tracked over the last 10 or 20 years, and you can see the increase in intensity and frequency.
One researcher says despite the resulting price hike on chocolate, the profits are not reaching cocoa farmers, preventing them from adapting to climate change.
They are not able to invest in their farms to regenerate their cacao trees, have more productive trees that are planted, or fight the disease and viruses that are affecting the tree.
It's not just the weather thousands of kilometers away that impacts Moffat's Saskatchewan business. Hotter summers here and hot temperatures lasting well into fall can melt her chocolate creations.
On weeks where it's, in high 20s or 30s, we tend to not ship our chocolate unless our client really wants it, and then we will put ice packs in, but there are definitely times where we just have to slow our shipping.
And keeping all that chocolate cool with those ice packs and air conditioning is costly, adding to the already skyrocketing price of cocoa. And while she may not be able to buy her cocoa locally, Moffat says she works to buy everything else for her shop from Canada, supporting local industry while saving a few dollars. Well, even though the weather may not feel like spring, that doesn't seem to be keeping the geese from setting up shop in downtown Saskatoon, even if it's just a few hardy birds who can tolerate the cold and snow. It is looking like warmer weather will return for the first official few days of spring, though. Riley Lachuk will bring us his forecast when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Saskatoon is a step closer to revolutionizing its transit system. As Helena Mahalik reports, the new plan is in its early stages, but has some people talking about what's to come.
Taking the bus might be a cheaper way to commute, but it's not always the fastest. Now, the City of Saskatoon is trying to solve this issue with what's known as the Link Rapid Transit System, a bus which will be able to move up to 1,400 passengers every hour. The city just unveiled design plans for the bus system at the University of Saskatchewan, a major hub for bus commuters. Aditi Dali takes the bus to school and to get groceries. She says a faster system is welcomed.
I'm very excited about that, and whenever it is quicker so that we can get to one destination more quickly, and I'd be happy for that one.
The new bus system, expected to cost $250 million, will be accessible everywhere. Construction of platforms will continue this summer using federal and provincial cash. 8 platforms were built last fall, another 44 will be built this year. The exact design of the bus shelters is still being worked out. The manager in charge of Link says commuters and businesses will be affected this summer.
A portion of construction that we do is that we're on existing streets, and there's existing people who are involved and who are going to be impacted by the work. So throughout all of the work, we look at exactly what it's likely to take and how long it'll take, trying to minimize any of those inconveniences for people in the community as best that we can, but while still doing the construction in a safe fashion.
Saskatoon says Link was created because of the population. The city estimates the last 10 years it grew by over 70,000 people. This is the equivalent of adding everyone from both Moose Jaw and Prince Albert to Saskatoon. Right now, the city has a few core bus terminals where people can gather, but the transit director says Link will completely change this.
The hope is to have a more convenient to use network, one where there's a little bit more connectivity and the ability to get around the city in a better way. Not so much like today where everything kind of funnels through downtown and you transfer in one location. The intent with the network redesign is to make sure that there's better connectivity across the city.
Molenbeek won't confirm how the cost of a bus ticket might change once Link is finally in motion, but he still expects it to launch in June of 2028. Helena Mahalik, CBC News, Saskatoon.
We are inching closer and closer to spring, and for some of us, maybe not feeling quite like it, but for others, starting to get nice and warm and some sunshine in Saskatoon for this Tuesday. And Riley Lachuk has a look at the full forecast as we head into spring. Hi, Riley.
All right, Ethan, maybe it didn't quite feel like spring, but it is about a day or so away. Early Thursday morning is when spring officially rolls in. I mean, looking outside, especially if you're in northern parts of the province, maybe you don't quite feel like spring's coming, and that we can look at on our snow depth map. Laronge and north into Stony Rapids, Uranium City, some places still have 30+ centimeters on the ground. In southern and central sections, particularly around the Duck Mountains, we're looking at about 20 centimeters on the ground, and the further south and west you go, where we have seen some of those double-digit temperatures in the past couple of weeks, barely anything left on the ground, and really not a lot of precipitation to talk about. We actually could use a little bit of precipitation rolling through because it's been a bit dry so far this month. Daytime temperatures, yeah, not quite spring-like. -3 in Regina, -2 in Saskatoon, really around the freezing mark for much of south and central today. And still a couple of stubborn minus double digits on the map. Collins Bay at -12, Stony Rapids getting to -13 degrees. Under the influence of high pressure for some of us today, that's helped to clear out skies across much of central and northern sections, a bit of cloud hanging around the south. And that has also brought with it a few stray flurries, particularly around Saskatoon and along Highway 16. But other than that, really not much to write home about today. And really, this is the pattern that we're going to be in for the next several days here. So as we get overnight into Wednesday morning, mainly clear skies for most of us. Out of some of this cloud cover, chance we could see a few flurries, particularly Prince Albert and north. And a slight chance some of that into Hudson Bay, Kenora, Kamsack, Yorkton, maybe a dusting by the time you wake up in the morning on Wednesday. Other than that, we're looking at another day of a mix of sun and clouds really across most of the province. We'll rinse and repeat as we start spring on Thursday. Mix of sun and clouds for most of us, although a little bit more cloud cover through central sections as we get into the day on Thursday. Maybe you get a couple of flurries out of this, but other than that, like I said, not a lot to speak of in terms of precipitation or really any active weather for the next several days. We're entering a very stable stretch of weather really right across the province. Temperatures tomorrow morning when you're waking up, pretty seasonal for this time of the year. North Battleford -6, same with Saskatoon. Temperatures Regina into southeastern parts of the province looking closer to -10, which is a seasonal wake-up temperature for this time of the year, and still quite a bit of cold under the influence of a bit of high pressure in the north, so -26 for Stony Rapids first thing in the morning. +1 for Regina for Wednesday, dipping below the freezing mark for Friday at -3. Slight chance maybe of a couple flurries into Saturday at 0, and then we're up above freezing and actually very seasonal for this time of the year to start next week. In Saskatoon, +3 for Wednesday. Spring starting with a cloudy +2 in Saskatoon, Ethan, and we're staying very seasonal right into next week, 3s and 4s into Monday and Tuesday.
And that is spring-like enough for me for this time of year. Thanks so much, Riley. Well, a community laundry program in Regina is helping the city's most vulnerable access clean clothes. It's called Operation Fresh Start, and as Campbell Stevenson reports, the program has been so successful, it's expanding.
Rally Around Homelessness began the laundry program in the fall of 2024. Now, the community organization is launching the second phase of its campaign. The program offers free laundry services to houseless people and families located in Regina's north central neighborhood. When it began, the group hoped it could clean at least 1,000 loads of laundry. But it's already surpassed that goal and is now up to 1,500 loads. This organizer says the community support has been overwhelming, and she hopes that will continue.
In an ideal world, if we could pump up those numbers to 200 per month, I think that would be a good spot to be. That would be, a pace of about 2,400 per year. If we could do that and do that sustainably, I think that's the ticket to success.
The Circle Project is a key partner in the campaign. Its members hand out laundry vouchers that can be redeemed at the Sea Spray Laundromat on the corner of Dudney and Elphinstone. Director Ann Perry says about 100 vouchers are given out every month.
You take those things for granted, don't you? You've got to, you need to wash your jeans, you need to wash your shirt, you throw it in the laundry, you got some change in your pocket to be able to do that. Well, for some people, that's not their reality. And so having the benefit of having clean clothes, that helps to restore a person's self-worth and self-respect, which everyone deserves to have.
Sherry Vester manages Sea Spray Laundry. She says seeing more and more people using and supporting this service brings her joy.
The community has done an overwhelming job coming forth with everything. Soap, donations, it's just like people are just coming in and saying here's $20 that are just regular customers because they've seen them and heard about the program.
The project is accepting even more donations for Phase 2. They can be made at the Circle Project and at the Sea Spray Laundromat. Campbell Stevenson, CBC News, Regina.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
That is the SpaceX capsule with Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams splashing down off the Florida coast Tuesday after leaving the space station nearly 6 hours earlier. When they left Earth 9 months ago, it was meant to be a test flight for about a week, but their new Boeing Starliner crew capsule ended up having several issues, and a return flight was deemed too risky. The pair spent the long stay helping the onboard crew with experiments and station maintenance. Stay with us. We have more news for you and a final look at your forecast after the break. It's been nearly a year since Saskatchewan singer Rebecca Strong won Canada's Got Talent. The season premiere of that show is this week, and we caught up with Rebecca to find out what life has been like for her since winning the $1 million top prize.
It's bittersweet because, of course, it ended, but now I have so many different opportunities in my hands since it's happened. I've been traveling all over Canada. I've been to places that I've never been before. Even outside of Canada, I went to the US for the first time. I went to the Dominican Republic for vacation. I was so grateful to do that with my family. And I'm going to be going to the territories in June for the first time. A lot of Quebec, Ontario, just a lot of fun in the northern parts and seeing all of my Indigenous youth. So I've been doing a lot of shows out in the northern communities of different provinces. In January, I just did an Athabasca tour. I visited all 7 communities. And I just finished it up last week in Uranium City. So that was really fun. And I loved seeing my family up there.
All right, so we are looking at a bit of a cloudy sky overnight, looking at temperatures close to -10, really for much of south and central, -12 overnight in Regina, -12 in Yorkton as well, Moosomin -11. Bit more warmth into southwestern sections. Once again, Maple Creek at -6. Pretty seasonal overnight temperatures for most of us, except when you get into the far north, looking at -24 in Cree Lake, -27 overnight in Uranium City. Really barely getting out of the -20s for parts of northern Saskatchewan into your Wednesday, looking at -16 by the time we get to the afternoon for Cree Lake, -8 into LaRange. Mix of sun and clouds, maybe a few flurries out of this. Trying to be optimistic by saying -5, but no, we're at -8. Into southern and central sections, more sunshine than we saw throughout the day today. We are looking at a mix of sun and clouds as we get through the day on Wednesday. Temperatures close to or above the freezing mark once again for your midweek.
All right, thanks, Riley. And that is it for us. For News Anytime, you can head to our website or subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.